Special Counsel Jack Smith is now asking the Supreme Court to decide a question he says is at the heart of American democracy, whether Donald Trump, who's facing criminal prosecution for his actions while president, is protected by presidential immunity. Smith is circumventing the traditional appeals process in his criminal case against the former president, calling it a matter of, quote, imperative public importance. He's asked the court to respond to his request by next Monday. Trump's federal election interference trial is set to begin in March, but the start date will likely be delayed. Now a question of how much. I'm joined now by Carol Lamb, a former U.S. attorney and former federal judge. She's now an NBC News legal analyst. So, Carol, what's Jack Smith's goal here? Just to kind of speed this process along as much as possible?
Absolutely it is, Garrett. This is a race against the clock for Jack Smith. He's doing everything he can to try to preserve that March 4th trial date or keep it as close to March 4th as he can, given the upcoming Republican National Convention and then, of course, the election in November of 2024. That's his goal here.
He's got some precedent on his side. He cites U.S. v. Nixon in his brief. Do we think the Supreme Court will take up his request? I mean, they presumably could just say, yeah, thanks for the letter, Jack, but we're good.
They absolutely could say that, and it's anybody's guess what they're going to do in this case, because the normal procedure is that any losing party on any motion has to wait until the conclusion of the case before they can take up an appeal. This is an exception to that rule, that general rule. They are allowed to take an immediate appeal of Judge Chutkan's order. This is Trump's team can immediately appeal the denial of their motion in front of Judge Chutkan to dismiss the case, and they have done that. So now Jack Smith is saying we don't have time to wait for the Court of Appeals to follow their normal processes, which sometimes takes months and often more than a year. We're going to go directly to the Supreme Court. So that is what he's asking the court to do, and there is precedent for that. But again, the Supreme Court has a very busy schedule. They've got 9 justices, all 9 justices hear every case that they decide to hear, and they're already in the middle of a very busy term.
And of those 9, 3 of these justices were appointed by Donald Trump to the high court. And given all the discussion about Supreme Court ethics over the last year or so, would you expect any of them would recuse themselves in a matter like this?
I would not expect a recusal. If we ended up in a place, Garrett, where justices had to recuse themselves because something involved the president who appointed them, I think we'd be in a pretty bad place. The expectation is that justices are going to rule according to the law, and you can see that in the lower courts as well. Some of the judges who have ruled against Donald Trump and his team were, in fact, appointed by Donald Trump. So that's the understanding, that's the expectation of our judges and justices. Yeah,
I mean, I could see it as a tricky precedent, but most former presidents don't talk about their judges versus other people's judges in quite the same way. It's going to be fascinating to see however it breaks out. Carol Lamb, we'll be glad to have you alongside us as we see what the Supreme Court decides to do.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.